everybody, I'm Mrs. Brown, and welcome to the sequel of Beowulf. While Grendel may be dead, people love the story of Beowulf so much, they needed more. And so they're just like, we need to dive back into this. And they were just like, okay, that sounds great. So the first story didn't mention a Mrs. Grendel or baby Grendels, so the sequel goes with Grendel's mother. Yeah. And Grendel's mama is upset because somebody went and killed her baby. And not only did that, but ripped off his arm and then used his arm as home decor in order to go and hang it above, like in the rafters at Harriet. So she is upset and she's not a happy camper. Now, let's go ahead and get started here. Grendel's mother, y'all. Although one monster has died, another still lives. From her lair in a cold and murky lake where she has been brooding over her loss, Grendel's mother emerges, bent on revenge. Now, notice that she's not even given a name. It's just Grendel's mother. What I want for you to do is during this story, compare and contrast Grendel and all of his battles with his mother. And let's just see who you think has a little bit more menace to it, okay? So she reached Harriet, where the Danes slept as though already dead. Her visit ended their good fortune, reversed the bright vein of their luck. No female, no matter how fierce, could have come with a man's strength, fought with the power and courage men fight with, smashing their shining swords, their bloody hammer-forged blades onto boar-headed helmets, slashing and stabbing with the sharpest of points. The female monsters can't even catch a break. I mean, she's going and just attacking because she's angry because somebody went and killed her baby. The soldiers raised their shields and drew those gleaming swords, swung them above the piled-up benches, leaving their mail shirts and their helmets where they'd lain when the terror took hold of them. To save her life, she moved still faster, took a single victim and fled from the hall, running to the moors, discovered, but her supper assured, sheltered in her dripping claws. She'd taken Hrothgar's closest friend, the man he most loved of all men on earth. She'd killed a glorious soldier, cut a noble life short. Oh, that's so sad. So far, Grendel's winning with the body count. Grendel's mom came on in, but she's only able to go and kill one person. But, on the other hand, it is Hrothgar's best friend. Oh no. No gate could have stopped her. Beowulf and his band had been given better beds. Sleep had come to them in a different hall. So that's why Beowulf wasn't around in order to go and stop her immediately. He had been given like a nice bed rather than being like sleeping in the hall. Excuse me, can't talk. Then all Harriet burst into shouts. She had carried off Grendel's claw. Sorrow had returned to Denmark. They'd traded deaths, Danes and monsters, and no one had won. Both had lost. Okay, let's just go and think about poor Grendel's mother here. So she goes on in. She's already angry that her baby came on back without an arm and then he died. So obviously she's going to be upset about that. But then she goes on into Harriet and she's just, like causing a ruckus, of course, because she's a monster. And as she walks in, she sees up above that her baby's arm is being used as home decor, like just hung up on the wall. That's just, oh my, that's terrible. I can't believe that. So can you blame her? She took it because she's like, that's my baby, that's part of my baby, don't use him as home decor. And so they're mad. Yeah, like I can understand from their perspective too. They're like, no, that was like my trophy, and no, she took it. I don't blame her. I don't blame her. Devastated by the loss of his friend, Hrothgar sends for Beowulf and recounts what Grendel's mother has done. Then Hrothgar describes the dark lake where Grendel's mother has dwelt with her son. So this is a big change, and you can kind of tell that obviously it's not the same author who created this story than from the original with Grendel. So there's like some small changes, and even with sequels, you see that in the movies, or even like in flashbacks, things will be changed a little bit just to go along with the story. But now apparently Grendel's mother and Grendel live together in this dark lair, or this nasty, disgusting lair. So at least they know where she's supposed to go, or where they're supposed to go in order to get her. So that's good at least. They live in secret places, windy cliffs, wolf dens where water pours from the rocks, then runs underground where mist steams like black clouds. And the groves of trees growing out over their lake are all covered with frozen spray and wind down snake-like roots that reach as far as the water and help keep it dark. Okay, they were just there yesterday in order to go and see the lake that was super bloody. So I don't know why they'd have to go and recount this, but this is just for the story's sake. But just with continuity, it's kind of silly, but it's okay. At night, that lake burns like a torch. No one knows its bottom. No wisdom reaches such depths. A deer hunted through the woods by packs of hounds, a stag with great horns, though driven through the forest from faraway places, prefers to die on those shores, refuses to save its life in that water. It isn't far, nor is it a pleasant spot. Doesn't sound like it. When the wind stirs and storms, waves splash toward the sky, as dark as the air, as black as the rain that the heavens weep. Our only help, again, lies with you. Grendel's mother is hidden in her terrible home, in a place you've not seen. Seek it, if you dare. Save us once more, and again twisted gold, heaped up ancient treasure will reward you for the battle you win. All right, so side note about the whole treasure thing. Treasure was a really big deal back then, but probably not for the reason that you're thinking. Hrothgar would have given Beowulf this treasure, but it wasn't his to keep. He would have had to go and take it back to his king. So then Hygelac would have to determine how good that was, and he would then give different types of treasures to Beowulf, so that'd be like land or animals and titles. But Hygelac would keep the gold. It's not for Beowulf to keep. If we go back and take a look at what is our Freytag's pyramid here, we had a really, really short Freytag's pyramid. It's just a matter of that Grendel's mom's angry. So then the inciting incident is going to be where she goes and comes to her and attacks and kills Hrothgar's closest friend. Now we're in the rising action where Hrothgar is again saying, hey, can you go and kill yet another monster? Next part, the battle with Grendel's mother. Beowulf accepts Hrothgar's challenge, and the king and his men accompany the hero to the dreadful lair of Grendel's mother. Fearlessly, Beowulf prepares to battle the terrible creature. He leaped into the lake, would not wait for anyone's answer. The heaving water covered him over. For hours he sank through the waves. At last he saw the mud of the bottom. Okay, I'm not really a big fan of where this author chose to cut away and summarize, because a lot of cool content was cut out. So Beowulf jumping into the water is actually the climax of the story, but it really doesn't seem like it because of how much they cut out. FYI, he is wearing armor this time. So if she's not as big of a monster and not as bad, why does he wear armor for this one? I'm just saying. But anyway, he is then descending into, like, down into the water for hours. And remember, scuba gear doesn't exist back then, you guys. So he's holding his breath the entire time. Yeah. So obviously this is an exaggeration. That's known as a hyperbole. So it's not supposed to be taken literally, but in this case, it's just so much more fun to think about it as such, of him holding his breath the entire time for hours and hours and hours. And all at once the greedy she-wolf who'd ruled those waters for 100 years discovered him, saw that a creature from above had come to explore the bottom of her wet world. So she's only 50, or maybe she like had to grow up and then come into power because she's ruled for 50 years. Anyway, she's not that old. She welcomed him in her claws, clutched at him savagely but could not harm him, tried to work her fingers through the tight ring-woven mail on his breast, but tore and scratched in vain. Then she carried him, armor and sword and all, to her home. He struggled to free his weapon and failed. The fight brought other monsters swimming to see her catch, a host of sea beasts who beat at his mail shirt, stabbing with tusks and teeth as they followed along. So, probably more walruses. Then he realized suddenly that she'd brought him into someone's battle hall, and there the water's heat could not hurt him, nor anything in the lake attack him through the building's high arching roof. A brilliant light burned all around him, the lake itself like a fiery flame. Ooh, very exciting. So can you tell that there's definitely a different author telling this story from the previous battle? It's so much more fantastical, so much more over the top. Grendel's mother now magically has this underwater battle hall. And remember, just for giggles, he's still holding that single breath from several hours ago. And now there's walruses. What do they have against walruses? Then he saw the mighty water witch and swung his sword, his ring-marked blade straight at her head. The iron sang its fierce song, sang Beowulf's strength. Wait, now she's a water witch? Is she Ursula from The Little Mermaid? Grendel was not described as a water witch, so maybe he takes after his dad. I don't know. Something. But her guest discovered that no sword could slice her evil skin, that runting could not hurt her, was useless now when he needed it. They wrestled. She ripped and tore and clawed at him, bit holes in his helmet, and that too failed him. For the first time in years of being worn to war, it would earn no glory. It was the last time anyone would wear it. But Beowulf longed only for fame, leaped back into battle. Okay. Couple things here. So, for some reason, every single time that I read this and it says that she's now biting holes in his helmet, I just picture like, I don't know, a can opener. And that's the kind of teeth that she has, or the type of mouth. It just kind of makes me laugh. All right. So here's a little backstory, because there's like a ton of stuff that was cut out. And I mean, this is just a selection from Grendel, or from Beowulf, excuse me, not Grendel. That's a different one. But you're probably thinking, who's runting? What's going on? So let me go and explain that real quick, because it's going to help. So from the previous story, which is Beowulf versus Grendel, there was this jealous Gate. And so remember, the Gates are going to be one of Hrothgar's men. And his name was Unferth. And he got drunk and tried to make Beowulf look bad by saying that Beowulf wasn't really like all that and all that heroic, because he hadn't even won this swimming match against this guy named Brecca. And he's like, oh, you know, you say that you're the best of the best and you're really not. So Beowulf was nice, but he stuck up for himself. He's like, dude, I was in full armor when I was swimming against Brecca, and I got attacked by 9 sea monsters, and so I had to go and fight them off, and that's the only reason that Brecca won. So again, walruses. And then he goes and like is kind of a jerk, but he dishes it back to him, and he says, Unferth, the only thing I've ever heard about you was that you had the opportunity to kill Grendel, but you didn't. And oh yeah, that one thing, you killed your brothers, so you're probably going to hell. Shots fired. So anyway, obviously Beowulf defeated Grendel. Unferth had a change of heart after that, and he was really good about it. And he went and apologized to Beowulf, and he tried to make amends. He's like, "Here, this is my most prized possession. It's this grand sword that I inherited, and its name is Runting." And so Beowulf was very like, he was blessed by that, and he's like, "Oh, that's so sweet. Thanks, Unferth." And now they're buds, and he's like, "You know what? I'm gonna go and show that you're a good guy too, and how much this means to me. I'm gonna take Runting, the sword that you gave me, down to go and defeat Grendel's mom." So that's what that one's talking about. Okay, so then this other part where it says, "But Beowulf longed only for fame, leaped back into battle." Fame aspect makes Beowulf look a little prideful, but that's really not the case. So fame would actually bring glory to his king, Hygelac. And that's what he really wants, is to go and make his king and his country look really good. So I just wanted to go and point that out for that. He tossed his sword aside, angry. The steel-edged blade lay where he dropped it. If weapons were useless, he'd use his hands, the strength of his fingers. Why didn't he do that in the first place? That's what he did last time. So fame comes to the men who mean to win it and cares about nothing else. He raised his arms and seized her by the shoulder. Anger had doubled his strength. He threw her to the floor. She fell. Grendel's fierce mother, and the gate's proud prince was ready to leap on her. But she rose at once and repaid him with her clutching claws, wildly tearing at him. He was weary, that best and strongest of soldiers. His feet stumbled, and in an instant she had him down, held helpless. Squatting with her weight on his stomach, she drew a dagger, brown with dried blood, and prepared to avenge her only son. Okay, so far it really looks as if Grendel's mother may be putting up a better fight than Grendel did. I'm just saying. Beowulf's actually tired. That's impressive. Also, she needs to really take some pride in her dagger and clean that. That's just gross and icky. But he was stretched on his back, and her stabbing blade was blunted by the woven mail shirt he wore on his chest. The hammered links held. The point could not touch him. He'd have traveled to the bottom of the earth, Edgetho's son, and died there, if that shiny, woven metal had not helped. And holy God, who sent him victory, gave judgment for truth and right. Ruler of heavens, once Beowulf was back on his feet and fighting. So remember, you guys, we are in the falling action of the story here, and it's so intense. It's so intense. Then he saw hanging on the wall a heavy sword, hammered by giants, strong and blessed with their magic, the best of all weapons, but so massive that no ordinary man could lift its carved and decorated length. He drew it from its scabbard, broke the chain on its hilt, and then, savage now, angry and desperate, lifted it high over his head and struck with all the strength he had left, caught her in the neck, and cut it through. Broke bones and all. Here's our resolution. He chopped off her head. So it seems just as all was lost, Beowulf spotted a sword made by giants hanging on the wall, and he grabs it and slices off her head. Her body fell to the floor lifeless. The sword was wet with her blood, and Beowulf rejoiced at the sight. Wouldn't it already be wet because they're underwater? And he's still holding the same breath. The brilliant light shone suddenly, as though burning in that hall, and as bright as heaven's own candle lit in the sky. He looked at her home, then following along the wall went walking, his hands tight on the sword, his heart still angry. He was hunting another dead monster, and took his weapon with him for final revenge against Grendel's vicious attacks, his nighttime raids, over and over coming to Heorot when Hrothgar's men slept, killing them in their beds, eating some on the spot, 15 or more, and running to his loathsome moor with another such sickening meal waiting in his pouch. Wait, Grendel has a pouch now? This is new information. Does that mean he's part kangaroo? Is it a satchel? Is it a fanny pack? There's so many options here. But Beowulf repaid him for those visits, found him lying dead in his corner, armless, exactly as that fierce fighter had sent him out from Heorot, then struck off his head with a single swift blow. The body jerked for one last time, then lay still. So this part is more of, meanwhile, back at the top of the lake, the wise old warriors who surrounded Hrothgar, like him staring into the monster's lake, saw the waves surging and blood spurting through. Ooh, so they think that's Beowulf's blood and that he's dead. They spoke about Beowulf, all the greybeards, whispered together and said that hope was gone, that the hero had lost fame and his life at once, and would never return to the living, come back as triumphant as he had left. Almost all agreed that Grendel's mighty mother, the she-wolf, had killed him. Wait, I thought she was a witch, and now she's also a wolf. Okay. The sun slid over past noon, went further down. The Danes gave up, left the lake and went home, Hrothgar with them. The gates, that's Beowulf's men, stayed, sat sadly watching, imagining they saw their lord, but not believing they would ever see him again. Then the sword melted, so this is back underneath, like in the layer. Then the sword melted, blood-soaked, dripping down like water, disappearing like ice when the world's eternal lord loosens invisible fetters and unwinds icicles and frost as only he can. He who rules time and seasons, he who is truly God. The monster's hall was full of rich treasures, but all that Beowulf took was Grendel's head and the hilt of the giant's jeweled sword. The rest of that ring-marked blade had dissolved in Grendel's steaming blood, boiling even after his death. And then the battle's only survivor swam up and away from those silent corpses. The water was calm and clean, the whole huge lake peaceful once the demons who'd lived in it were dead. Oh, now wildlife will go back in it when they're being hunted. Yay. Then that noble protector of all seamen swam to land, rejoicing in the heavy burdens he was bringing with him. He and all his glorious band of Geats thanked God that their leader had come back unharmed. They left the lake together. The Geats carried Beowulf's helmet and his mail shirt. Behind them, the water slowly thickened as the monster's blood came seeping up. Or not. I guess the water was calm, but now it's congealing with blood. Gross. They walked quickly, happily, across the roads all of them remembered, left the lake and the cliffs alongside it. Brave men staggering under the weight of Grendel's skull, too heavy for fewer than 4 of them to handle, 2 on each side of the spear jammed through it, yet proud of their ugly load and determined that the Danes seated in Heorot should see it. So Grendel's head was so big and heavy that it took 4 men to go, with spears, to go and carry it back to Heorot, whereas Beowulf was just like carrying it in one hand and like the giant's sword hilt in the other. So he's extremely strong. Wow. Soon 14 Geats arrived at the hall, bold and warlike, and with Beowulf, their lord and leader, they walked on the mead hall green. Then the Geats' brave prince entered Heorot, covered with glory for the daring battles he had fought. He sought Hrothgar to salute him and show Grendel's head. He carried that terrible trophy by the hair, brought it straight to where the Danes sat, drinking, the queen among them. It was a weird and wonderful sight, and the warriors stared. And so that brings the end of Grendel's mother, the tale with that one. So Beowulf 2, Grendel's mother. So I hope y'all enjoyed this, and we are not done with Beowulf because he has one more story. So yes. So tune in next time and we'll see you then. Bye.